With inflation crushing the dollar and the American beef cattle population at 73-year lows from federal overreach, meat prices are soaring. You need Carnivalt. Premium American freeze-dried meats, beef, chicken, pork, 25-year shelf life, no refrigeration, 100% U.S. sourced, grass-finished, zero mRNA, histamines, or antibiotics. Discreet brown box shipping for subscribers. Nobody knows you're prepping. Lock in today's prices before they skyrocket. Turn dollars into tangible assets. Black Friday special? Spend $99 or more at carnivalt.com. Get 3 free months on your Survival Dispatch Guardian subscription. It's already 50% off at $37.50 for a year. Then add 3 months free. That's just $2.50 a month for 6 private signal channels, emergency alerts, 37 survival eMags, unredacted SITREPS, and censorship-free intel. Solo orders? Use code EATMEAT, all one word, for 10% off. Order Carnivalt, sign up at survivaldispatch.news, forward your receipt to support at survivaldispatch.com, and your 3-month extension activates automatically. Carnivalt.com. Secure your family's future today. We are back. I'm Chris Evan, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Randy Nance, back home in Texas, combat wounded Green Beret. I don't know what you all think, but I think Randy looks like he put about 10 pounds on from turkey just yesterday. Maybe you know
feels
what?
Like it.
It's the camera. Right? The camera.
That's exactly what it is. And I do need to get a trim, which is coming very soon. So that makes me look wider.
just wash it. It'll shrink. You'll be good.
That's right.
So speaking of combat wounded vets and vets in general, I want to share something with y'all. Oh, wrong stage. This one here. This is from my sister-in-law. So this company here, let me pull the card up at veteranscannabiscare.org. It's in Castleberry, Florida, which is essentially Orlando. And here's the rack card that she gave me at dinner yesterday. These guys are doing something really special for veterans. And even if you live out of state, if you spend 30 days in Florida, you qualify for this. This is the only cannabis care organization that we know of and that they know of that pays all of the expenses to get you a cannabis card if you're a veteran in the state of Florida. So basically they cover, apparently there's I'm just reading the card off here. There's a doctor's fee and there's a state fee to get your card every year. And I'm not sure exactly what that adds up to. What I do know is that the last Tuesday of each month, they look after veterans for free. It's pretty awesome. Go to Cannabis Care. Veteranscannabiscare.org. I'm going to put it in the in the live chat here in just a second, but these are really good people doing really good things. They don't make a penny off of this at all. This is strictly to help our veterans. They don't sell medical marijuana, cannabis products, or anything like that. These people strictly look after making sure that you get the license and the paperwork that you need to go get that stuff. So check them out, veteranscannabiscare.org. I'm going to put a link in the live chat here in just a second. So Randy's here for kind of the beginning. Jeff will probably be here for kind of towards the end since we're in holiday mode here. Well, most of us are in holiday mode. Yeah. But our main topic tonight is we're going to be, discussing the great cyber game and happening during 9/11 2.0. Typically, the intel is showing towards the end. They want the word to get out before they start attacking our infrastructure. So they're not going to take down the interwebs and all of the other stuff that goes with it until they've scared the bejesus out of everybody. So before we get into the sit rep of the night and the main topic of the night, we're going to hit the conflicted question of the night. So conflictedthegame.com. 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic scenarios. 99% of the questions have some element of morality to them, hence the name conflicted. So tonight's question, and I don't know if Randy will be here for the end, probably not, but Jeff and I will answer this question. Several businesses were closing their doors. Since it was almost impossible to function under the circumstances, Gordon needed supplies and was willing to pay the price to get them. if you were in his situation, what means of persuasion would you use to get what you need? So I don't know if there's a whole lot of morality in that one, Randy, but
well, it depends, because some people may be willing to, as you've mentioned many times, of the old, neighbors of these folks that are willing to take something by gunpoint. There'll be people willing to kill for sure over little stuff. I mean, you look at what happens, in the bad parts of town where people get killed over $5 or $10 worth of crack or something like that. You know what I mean? Guaranteed when supplies are limited. I've always said, really, you think people think we've had conflicts over oil, and we have. There's no two ways about that. But the fact of the matter is, wait until people are really, when we start fighting over water, then you're going to see some real conflict.
Yeah, water and food in general, for sure.
Yes.
And it's when did we start doing this? It was over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago with these guys.
Yeah.
I'll just give our audience a quick recap on that, by the way. So essentially what happened is this couple, unfortunately, they've divorced since this time, but they bought a large ranch in northern Idaho, and like hundreds of acres, and they were like 30 minutes from the closest convenience store and gas station, and something like an hour to the closest town. And people would, there's a handful of neighbors, they'd show up and say, "Oh, it's nice to meet you, welcome to the area. What do y'all do for work?" And they'd say, "Well, we have this card game called Conflicted the Game, and do you want to play?" And they used it to essentially evaluate their neighbors. And Randy just hit on one of them. So one of the neighbors, they're playing the conflicted game, and a question comes up, and the guy says, "Prepping? I don't prep. I'm not going to prep. Are you crazy? If the shit hits the fan, I'm just going to take whatever I want at gunpoint." They were like, "Oh, that's good to know." And as soon as
duly noted.
They were like, "Well, that guy never gets an invite to come back for dinner ever again."
We know if he shows up afterwards, what he's coming for.
Yeah, exactly. So hang with us. We'll answer the conflict question at the end of the broadcast, and I want to see your answers as well in the live chat. Comment section down below, over in our Guardian Signal chats, wherever you can. This next one here, Randy, we're going to get blood pressure going right out of the gate.
Yeah, with this, man. Tough situation.
Yep. So the female National Guardsman who was shot in DC has passed away, if you didn't hear it. 20 years old. They were all from West Virginia, that particular unit. And Nick Sordar says it pretty good, because we brought in terrorists with open arms. This can never be allowed to happen again. Send them all back now. Randy, we started 3 years ago predicting that there was going to be a massive amount of blood on Joe Biden, Obama, Mayorkas, Kamala. All of their hands were flooding our country with shit bags from third world shitholes that should not be here. This is certainly not the first instance of it. Definitely not the last instance of it. And when 9/11 2.0 kicks off, it's going to go to a whole new level. As a veteran, tell me that you went to the Middle East, that you were a GWAT vet and were grievously injured to have this shit happen in our country.
Well, I've been thinking about it. If you don't remember, on it's Friday, so probably Wednesday, we had one of the questions. You said, what should the Sedacious Six and all of them be held responsible? Well, yeah. I think any of the politicians, and there's quite a few on the side that are not that are anti-American, right? I go with real Americans, and then we got douchebags that are anti-Americans, because both sides are no longer pro-American. And I think that we should. Why? Because look what they did to the January 6th folks. And they're still touting January 6th like it was some sort of real insurrection. And, the fact is, everybody knows now it was not. It's proven by video. And so, but my point is, they were also trying to tie in Trump to that, right? And hold him accountable, saying that he caused that by tweeting for them to be there. And they're talking about one tweet. When we can go back certainly since 2015, or maybe it was 2014 at the end, whenever he announced that he was going to run, and as a Republican. And now all we've seen since then is them call for his death, behead him, hang him, kill him. We've heard this many, many times. So at what point do the Americans, pro-American side, decide to hold the anti-American side responsible for this type of thing? Because they have done nothing but spit violent rhetoric for a good 15 years. And they definitely have cooked the situation up that we're looking at right now between everybody, and so, the rumor has it that little message was just one little leak, so that they, after the first of the year, they're going to really push for a civil war. And, you've said it, many people have said it. We're so diametrically opposed now that we can't see the other side and they can't see us. And furthermore, neither side wants to at this point. I don't, for that, I'm ready to just cut them off. See you later. And at some point we need to do that. That's really, if we were smart, that's what we would do.
There will be no reconciliation. And
no.
So Husker in the live chat, it just went flying by me here. I'm not sure where it is, but he basically asked if a CW could be avoided, and the answer is no. And we'll talk a little bit more on that through the podcast. But our good friend Father Duck, it's a decent comment on his part. Yes, very sad, very criminal on the part of the government allowing these maggots into the country.
Sure.
Yeah, maggots
for sure
is about the equivalent of what they are. So thank you, Father Duck, for adding that to the conversation. All right, so moving on from Sarah Adams, and this is relative to Sarah Beckstrom being assassinated, murdered. I mean, the word to me is assassinated after Charlie Kirk. These are assassinations. And I'm trying to be careful what I say, because I don't want to commit suicide by shooting myself 3 times in the back of the head. But
I mean, it's, you got to ask yourself at some point, how did we get here? But the problem is what I just mentioned, and we've talked about it over the last couple, man, that, the left is always willing to do anything, and including kill people to get their way. And certainly even when people, or even like Charlie Kirk, we're going to kill that guy because he's winning the narrative conversation being nice. And we can't have that. How do we get to where we've got some freaking foreigner, an illegal alien, and apparently he came in, with the Bidens, and I don't know if it was that. Some people are saying it was after the withdrawal and all that, when we brought a bunch over. I don't know if that's true or not, but we do know they didn't vet a bunch of those folks. But to what we were told was that these were people that had worked with us. So,
he was a special forces soldier in Afghanistan who worked with the CIA, worked directly for John Ratcliffe on some projects, the director of the CIA.
Well, it's pretty telling, right? That this guy, we could see this happening with normal folk, right? You just let's bring 1 million of them, right? And even if 10% of them bad, that's 100,000 bad people, right?
Yeah, it's a huge.
But you don't, but you don't expect any of those to actually have worked with us before on our side, supposedly on our side. And if they're working with the CIA, how is somebody that was picked to work for the CIA now do this here in our own country? That's very telling, I think.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the CIA, let's bring Jeff in. Hey, Jeff.
Hey,
hey guys. Sorry, just got back.
Were your ears burning?
I actually heard him bitching about CIA. I was expecting it.
Well, yeah, we're talking about that shitbag who.
Yeah, no, actually, when I saw that he'd worked with us, that doesn't surprise me, because we employed half the freaking country at one point. Where I was, we had a counter-terrorist pursuit team, and there were probably 250 guys. I knew 2 of them. But more than anything, we had a lot of interpreters, Terps. We had tons of those. I think in my little base, where we only had 2 case officers, we had 5 Terps, because sometimes we needed them 24/7. Whenever we needed them. So they worked shifts, and there was always somebody there. So he could have been that. And we had Terps that were 50, and we had Terps that were 20. Just depends.
I'm assuming that you heard that Sarah Beckham, the female national guard, just died.
Yeah, I heard that first thing this morning. Yeah, I heard that.
And they need to seek the death penalty. Make a quick question for you, Jeff. So Randy's feeling a little subconscious. He ate a lot of, or self-conscious, pardon me. He ate a lot of turkey yesterday. He looks like he's put 10 pounds on, but we've determined that it's
well, the camera adds 10 pounds, but the question is, how many cameras are on him?
Well, no, but this is the question: is what camera are you using? Because you don't look like you put 10 pounds on.
So well, I only have one camera. Randy has 3 cameras on him, so that's 30.
So that's the trick, Randy. Get 3 cameras.
What? And he brushed his hair again today. That's what it is. So he still looks thinner.
No,
it does look like you got a haircut.
Walked in the door from my sister-in-law's where I was drinking beer and eating just crap. So
right on. So actually, let's get into that. Let's get back to Afghanistan. Let me get you on the other stage here, Jeff. So this article from Sarah Adams is pretty poignant. So if there are going to be any strikes in Afghanistan, talk to those of us who've been collecting in the camps for the last 4 years. We know these targets better than anyone in the U.S. government, and we know which actually matter if you want maximum impact against the terrorism still emanating from Afghanistan. Don't run bullshit ops. Take it to the right enemy. So this is a report based on, Trump's comments that, we're going to hit Afghanistan for this. So number one, I spoke to Khalid today and yesterday, and he said that will absolutely accelerate 9/11 2.0 if we do it. And the other part to it is Sarah's comments about knowing that the camps, that's vis-a-vis Khalid as well. So I'm not at liberty to go into super deep detail. What I can tell you is somewhere around 2/3 of the terrorist training camps in Afghanistan, Khalid or Khalid's assets or people have infiltrated them. He's spoken to it very briefly on the podcast before, and it's firsthand intel. So let me come back to you, Jeff. Let me get you up on the spotlight stage. All right. So since you were in Afghanistan, Randy was hurt in Iraq, by the way, for the audience, but he did get to go to Afghanistan as part of a special project later on, which I'll let him speak to in just a minute. Jeff, I mean, what's your opinion here? Do we retaliate against Afghanistan or no?
Well, you got to get more information first. You don't know if the guy, if he was acting on orders from someone else or he was just pissed off. I mean, if he was one that worked with us, and from what I read today, and it was from Sarah Adams, that he had family members on the other side, which is not uncommon anywhere for people who freaked out and go, oh my God, he had a family that was, Taliban. Well, yeah, everybody there, because all the families are related. Karzai, who was our guy running the country, had family members who were Taliban because Karzai was a Pashto and Taliban is mostly Pashto.
Okay.
So, and if the guy had come over and maybe he had been promised the moon by somebody and his life was not what he expected it to be, maybe he was pissed off and disgruntled. Maybe he did it on his own. So before you start blowing shit up, you need to collect more information. The guy survived. So you'll be able to question him. You'll be able to figure out who he's been in contact with, who he hasn't been in contact with, and go from there. But I think if you just start bombing the crap out of stuff right now, that's a knee-jerk reaction. And, there's a good chance it'll blow up in your face. So you don't want to bomb a group who is not trying to start shit with us. And if you bomb them by mistake, well, guess what? They'll start shit with us. You don't go up to a guy and punch him in the face only later to find out he's not the guy who grabbed your girlfriend's butt.
Right.
Especially if he, and then he turns around and punches you in the face.
Yeah. So, Randy, just before you pick up where Jeff left off there, explain the program that got you back to Afghanistan, what that did for your PTSD, because it's an amazing story.
Yeah. So the organization is David Farady's Troop First Foundation, right? And David Faraday was a European golfer that had success in Europe and then came over and also had success on the PGA Tour. He's an announcer. He had his own show for a little, I don't know if he still does, on the Golf Channel. Funny dude. But he started an organization here that helps troops. And a guy named Rick Kell runs it for him, right? And so they put together a thing called Proper Exit. And in 2009, they came to me. I was working at the SOCOM Care Coalition. And Rick and them were at the command visiting, and they came and said, basically told me what their idea was. What do you think of, would you be interested, or what do you think about going back to Iraq to where you were wounded, and then, you know, getting to go back and then leave on your own terms and fly back, you know, if it was a trip like that. And I was like, you know, and at that time I literally told him, I don't need that, you know. I don't need that. But I tell you what, I know a lot of dudes that would be very interested in doing something like that. And it's the irony of it is then they went ahead and did them. And I get a call, I think it was in 2015 or 2017, probably 2017. And now they're on trip 21 and they're going to go to Afghanistan. And of course, by this time, Iraq is closed off. You can't go there anymore. We'd already left. So anyway, so then when he first told me about it, I'm like, look, man, I've never been to Afghanistan. I don't want to think people think I'm trying to get over and just get on this trip. He said, well, Randy, look, what we've learned in all the other 20 trips is it's about the brotherhood. It's not about the geography. And I said, I thought about it for a second. I said, well, you know what, Rick, I think you're right. So I'll go because I'll help support all the other guys because everybody else that went was wounded in Afghanistan. And I'll go help support all the war fighters on the ground because most people don't realize it. You know, you think about today, really, there's no visibility. But even in 2017, people pretty much forgot that we still had troops in Afghanistan. It wasn't a daily thought for anybody or probably even a weekly thought anymore. But it didn't take me very long of getting on the trip. We landed, you know, we got into Kuwait and spoke there. And then we went around basically everywhere in Afghanistan speaking to all the troops. And it was very cool because even in Kuwait and everywhere we showed up at whatever camp it was, there was at least a mile where we would walk into where we were going and there would be service members on both sides from all services. And they were clapping, you know, coming on in. And then we would go in and speak. And those same people then would come by and shake our hands on the way out. So it was a very cool experience. And as I said, it didn't take me very long. I kind of felt, you know what? I am definitely going to get something out of this. And I just didn't realize the significance of, you know, when you get wounded like I did, you know, yeah, I was pissed off, but then the next thing you know, they put you under and you're out of there. And I woke up in the United States. You know what I mean? I had no recollection of any of that in between. And I didn't realize that, you know, I guess emotionally and probably mentally, how much that weighs on you when, you know, so then going back and able to do that and then leave on our own terms and fly off like we're supposed to be, it really meant something, you know. And I said, all the other ones were wounded in Afghanistan. 2 or 3 of them, we were in the same cache that they went through. And 1 or 2 of them got to meet a doctor or a nurse that was actually there when they came through, which was pretty special because those things are on a rotation also, right? They don't just stay in that one facility for years. Those military members that are nurses and doctors rotate out of there and everywhere else that are any kind of a medical facility or clinic. So that's what it was.
Yeah. So let me just quick summary for the audience because I noticed we just had a large influx of people joining. What Randy's discussing is a program where combat wounded vets got to go back to, you know, a theater of war. And Randy got to do all kinds of cool stuff, you know, with miniguns and howitzers and all that.
Oh man, we did. We actually got to shoot the howitzer. We shot the minigun and everything in between. You know, it was very cool.
What's the land version of the Sea Whiz called again? Because that's my favorite video.
The Sea Whiz? What is? I don't know what that is.
The dome that fires, you know, a gazillion 12-inch rounds per second.
Oh yeah, man! I've got a video of that thing. You know,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah,
and it is very, very cool. I can't remember. They did tell us the number, and I probably wouldn't disclose the exact number. But Bagram shut down. But how many they had around that thing, and pretty much for 700 meters, man, anywhere around that thing, if something came up, it would shoot it down before it even got to what would be the perimeter of Bagram then. And they actually had a couple of artillery rounds that their particular battery had shot down. And that was cool. They did shoot it for us. So it was.
I'll see if I can find the video.
It's the phalanx.
The phalanx.
Yes. That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is. That's
It's
the
pretty
correct
pretty
word.
cool though. Like Randy's taking a video of it, and you see these incoming missiles, and then you hear the sea whiz or the phalanx go off like that, and that's like hundreds of rounds in the blink of an eye, and then you can see them making contact in the sky, but the sound delay is pretty significant. And then all of a sudden, like a couple seconds later, you hear pop, 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 pop. I mean, it's
because they're explosive rounds. You shoot them, and then when the round gets to where it's going and hits the targeters around it, it blows up. So for those that don't know,
yeah, it's very cool stuff. But thanks, Randy. I appreciate
high dollar stuff. I tell you what, man.
Yeah.
But boy, it's so cool too.
Very cool. But I think the coolest part, though, and we'll just get back into the SITREP here, is that this guy came up with this idea to take combat wounded vets who've been carried off the battlefield, gave them a chance to go back to the front lines and walk off with their dignity. Very, very powerful, very cool thing. And I met Randy right around the time that he went and did that.
Probably a little before that. Yep.
Just a little bit. Exactly. So next one up from Nick's order. This is pretty funny. Oh, by the way, somebody, I don't remember, it was yesterday, day before, was, running their jaw in the comments about me cutting Donald Trump slack. Listen, were we going to vote for Kamala Harris? Really? Like, it was Kamala Harris? We're going to put her in office? Has Trump made mistakes? Yeah. Do I agree with everything that Trump has done? No. But those of you who are so immature that you will write a human being off over one particular thing, man, you got to grow up. What he did with Project Warp Speed and the mRNA stuff, I am vehemently against that. But I recognize that a lot of shit that's gone on with Trump has been self-inflicted by trusting other people that he shouldn't trust around him at the end of the day. So, like him or hate him, he's what we've got. He's way better than what the other side put out there. So, unless you're going to step up and run for president, you should probably put up or shut up, sort of thing. So President Trump just lambasted a reporter for asking why Trump blames Biden for this Afghan terrorist being in our country. This is classic Donald Trump, 1 minute, 14 seconds. I love the question that he asked the reporter here.
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you?
So if you didn't hear that, why do you claim that the Biden administration is responsible for this? And man, he goes off on her immediately. Let me start over.
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked. There were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go. We were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision. And we would have left from Bagram, and we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake. But they were incompetent, yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but I love this new Trump. I'll go to you first, Randy, since you're up center stage. He's not running for re-election, so he can speak his mind. And good for him.
Well, it's like I said all along, her even asking that question, to me, you lose credibility asking that question, or you're not a serious journalist.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that's when the guy came in. So why? And if he came in during Biden or during Trump's term, they would say that and they would blame him. So it's just ridiculous that they play that card both ways, and that so many people just fall for that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, you got any comments on Trump asking?
Well, yeah, I saw something on X today where saying, "Oh, I can't believe he does this," and it's like, well, wait a minute. Somebody asked a stupid question. Why can't you point out that they're asking a stupid question? What's wrong with
that? Was Leslie Stahl. Leslie Stahl was saying, you know, we're tired of this being attacked and everything. And he's kind of like,
Well,
well,
then
stop.
quit asking stupid questions.
Right. I couldn't agree more. So, all right, moving on to the next one here. Speaking of bad, you know, picks on Trump's part, Kash Patel's got to go, man. And Bondi's got to go. And
Well, the rumor is, right? I think that's going to happen.
yeah, I know for sure that Bondi's going because Andrew Bailey's an acquaintance of mine, and I speak to his chief of staff, and he was moved to DC to replace her. He should have been the first pick for AG. The guy's an incredible man. But another one from Sarah here. We've been saying for years that not only is San Diego one of Al Qaeda's preferred crossing points into the U.S., but they have made it clear they have an insider in the Otay Mesa border crossing, and the FBI hasn't cared for a second. Now they cosplay a fight against terrorists because it's at the top of the news cycle. FBI Director Kash Patel said a search warrant had been executed at the National Guard shooting suspect's last known address in Washington State. Based on what was found at the address, law enforcement was able to find people associated with him. By the way, we're going to get to this later on when we do the Hero of the Day. I'm sorry, spoiler alert, but I got to throw it out there right now because there's not been enough coverage of this. Like Keith was on with me yesterday and said that he felt like if this guy was, you know, planning to attack, he would have killed more people. But there was a piece of information that we didn't have at that point in time that we got today and is not getting widespread coverage. A fellow National Guardsman with no weapon other than a pocket knife charged this terrorist, took him to the ground, and started stabbing him. He saved countless lives by being one hell of a brave guy. So I don't think we can assume that this guy, you know, just had a screw loose and was out to kill a couple people. He wanted to take more than that. And if you ever hear Allah Akbar, you know, you'd probably, everybody's blood would friggin' curl and hair stand up the back of your neck because it's not a one and done. I don't know if I can make it through 1 minute and 32 seconds of him, but we're going to try it.
Provide an update on the case as follows. It is an ongoing investigation of terrorism. Make no mistake about it. The FBI is leading out on this federal assault on a federal law enforcement officer investigation on many fronts. We immediately, with our law enforcement partners in the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, secured the scene, seized the weapon, sent in our evidence response team immediately to collect evidence and started doing block by block canvases. We're looking for and interviewing witnesses, firearm and other materials at the Quantico Laboratory already yesterday for immediate analysis. That work is ongoing. Partnering with the DC United States Attorney's Office, we have also executed multiple search warrants around the country to include the subject's last known residence, which is in the state of Washington. The search warrant was executed on that house last night or early this morning, and it is an ongoing process. All the individuals found in the house have been interviewed, and some interviews remain ongoing. We will not stop until we interview anyone and everyone associated with the subject, the house, and every piece of his life. There's also subject interviews, relations conducted in San Diego, pursuant to our ongoing investigation. So, as the judge noted, this is a coast-to-coast investigation being led right here in Washington, D.C. And this subject definitely did pick the wrong country.
Hey, Randy, so were you chuckling because of him sniffling and all the rumors of him being a cokehead?
Well, he sniffles right at the same time. I'm like, that's fortuitous, I guess.
What's your impression here of his comments on this shitbags connections in up and down the left coast?
Well, I go back to the guy drove all the way from Washington State. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. To me, that's a little telling, but I don't know what it would be telling of, so to speak. I think that, you know, otherwise, why wouldn't you find somebody that's right there in DC? Why is this guy got to drive? I don't know. It's quite a drive, in fact, right? It was 3 days worth or something like that.
Well, I can kind of answer that question. One of the goals of 9/11 2.0 is to absolutely turn Washington, D.C. upside down.
Yeah, no, I know that for a fact. Yeah,
that's in addition to the 10 to 15 tier 2 cities.
Well, my point was, so he shot National Guard troops. He already deployed some in Washington too, or has he still not done that?
Washington State? I don't think so.
No.
It was
Okay.
talked about, yeah. So Jeff, your
Well,
thoughts?
actually, it was going to be Portland, Oregon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think is where I think that's my bad. But
Yeah,
either way, that's a lot closer, right? If he was going to take a shot at National Guard people, it
If
just seems
you're
like it would have been closer.
If you're doing it for publicity, you go to New York City or Washington, D.C.
Right.
And if you're doing it to make a political statement, you do it in Washington, D.C.
Oh, sure.
And he did it within 800 yards of the White House. Again,
Yeah.
if he'd done it in Portland, to be honest, it wouldn't have gotten this amount of coverage because there's so much Antifa activity. They would just go, okay, Antifa finally got, lost it and shot someone and actually hit their target because they've shot at people before bunches of times. They just tend to not kill the people they wanted to. So, yeah, if he's trying to make a political statement, that's the place to do it.
Yeah.
And if he's a one-offer, it's in the, you can make fun of Kash Patel all you want, but if tomorrow I decided all by myself to get up, drive halfway across the country and just shoot some random person, there's no way in hell the FBI is going to know about it and be able to prevent it.
Well, no, absolutely.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I have other issues with Kash.
Unless we find out there's this huge conspiracy with this guy, which we haven't seen yet, then we got to err on the side of caution, which is, okay, all we know is that this one person went and fired a gun and killed one person, tried to kill two or maybe three. And you can't make up facts that don't exist as of yet. Now, tomorrow is another day. There might be all sorts of stuff coming out. But I think we don't do anybody a service by pretending there is more there than there is. We don't know yet.
Yeah. So,
my whole issue is, but none of us trust the investigative force either.
That may
that's the problem we have today.
Well, it's a different issue. We got to wait till see what the hell they come up with first. If they come up with, if they spend 6 months and go, I don't know, I have no idea. Well, okay, you guys haven't done your damn job yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
but right now it's been 48 hours.
Yeah. But here's I think the problems that people have with this is, this guy was brought in surreptitiously. He overstayed his visa. He claimed he needed asylum, refugee status. But I have a big beef with this. When it's always men, military age men who do this, and their wife and children are still back in the other country.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought his wife and kids were here.
They eventually came over, but they leave ahead of them constantly. Like my, Uber driver last week, 6 years here, left his wife and kids. He was belly aching about it. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. Like, a real man doesn't do that. But,
I will say this about the FBI. We knew more about this bozo in 24 hours than we know today about crooks.
Yeah.
And that was 500 days ago.
I would probably balance that with what they're willing to tell us that they
Well, but the point is we know more about him publicly than we do about crooks.
Yeah,
Crooks was fucking born and raised here. We should know everything about this kid, including the type of toothpaste he bought.
Yeah.
We should, but I think that's going to probably not happen in our lifetime.
No,
check this out, Randy. Boom, there it is. There's the phalanx.
That's it.
This is the video that Randy sent.
Oh yeah, that's the one I took.
Yeah. So basically what you're going to see here is you're going to see that unit go off the phalanx. I always call them Sea-Wiz because they're on pretty much every Navy boat has one of these. The incredible cyclic rate for these things. So what you're going to do is you're going to see it go off. Then you're going to see Randy's camera go down towards the ground, and it's going to come back up again and look in the sky, and you'll see the incoming missiles hit, pop, 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 pop. And it's everybody should have one of these, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
When my wife asked how many guns I need, and I said all of them, she didn't find the humor in it. But this is what I was referring to. I think we should all have this kind
That's
of.
right. Yeah.
Here we go. 19 seconds.
Look at that shit.
Hey, was that you, Randy? Look at that.
Yeah, it was.
Let me back this up a bit because when it goes back up right where my cursor is, you're going to see it intercepting the incoming fire.
Look at that shit.
And it's all in this area. that you know what? All these times I watched that video, I didn't catch that part where you said, "Look at that shit."
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I was thinking, huh?
Yeah, that's 4,500 rounds per minute. That's
Yeah,
75 rounds a second.
It's no joke. You could hear if they all pop. First, everybody saw it shoot. You know that's quite a few rounds, and then listening to them pop out there, that was a couple hundred.
I love to watch them fire at night with the tracers.
Yeah,
listen, if Father Duck says we should all have this, then we should all have it.
That's right.
If your wife's objecting all the guns you're buying, or if your name is Shannon and your last name's with a G.
And y'all, but you got to realize this thing shoots stuff out of the air. Like if it's an artillery round, anything that shoots, it automatically maps out its trajectory and shoots it right out of the sky.
Yeah, but none of us could afford the ammo for even a minute of firing.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, this is why we have mutual assistance groups, so everybody can put pay to play, put some money in. I know Shannon G from our news team is looking at that going, holy shit, I'd like to get that. But she wears the pants in her home, or so we're told. And she has more guns than her better half. This is the beginning of something really interesting here. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem directed immigration officials to ignore Judge Boasberg's attempts to prevent a deportation flight to El Salvador. This is a big win for Kristi Noem. I think this is the dipping the toes in the water to see if we can make this happen. Jeff, go ahead and speak to that.
Yeah, Mike, actually, I was talking about this, something similar to this morning with my wife when they're talking about we're going to stop issuing visas to people from X number of countries or certain countries. And my wife's going to say, yeah, but some judge will come in and say they have to. And if the Trump administration needs to do on that one is say, okay, here's the Constitution, Mr. Judge. Where in there does it say you have the authority to issue a visa? And if you don't, kiss my lily white ass, because that's a Title II. That's a Title II authority that you do not have. That is reserved for the executive branch, specifically Department of State, Secretary of State.
Yep, exactly. Article 2 powers, executive. Randy?
Yeah.
Well, you know what I think about all these activist judges. You know what I mean? We need to get rid of them. They need to be fired, gotten rid of. We know that Obama put a bunch in, but they even bragged it was over 250, right, or something, 250 or 300 that Biden that got shoved in there.
That's right.
Every one of those are activist judges. They're not judges, they're activists. And we can't have the worst thing that could happen to us besides losing the media, which we've already done, is having a corrupt court system that's not where justice is not evenly, administered as this country's supposed to be. So
I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole because I've spoke a lot about it, but for those who are new viewers, the federal judiciary is a construct of Congress. So it's funded by Congress. It was invented by Congress. It can be eliminated by Congress. It can be completely overhauled. So we have somewhere in the range of 700 of these judges who've been appointed for life. None of them were voted into office. They like to say they're a co-equal branch of government. They are not. The co-equal branch is obviously executive, Supreme Court, legislature. So Congress. 1701. The entire federal judiciary was wiped out. It was called the Judiciary Act of 1701. And then there was the Judiciary Act of 1702. And that basically reinvented all of the federal judiciary because they had this, partisan thing going on.
1802.
You know what? I was thinking to myself, 1801, not 1701. I have 17 on the brain. Thank you for catching
That's okay.
me. But either way, these judges do not have the power that they think they have. And thanks for the correction, Jeff.
I still want people thinking that we had federal judges before the revolution.
Right. Oh, no, that's what I'm thinking. Wait a minute, I got that messed up. But thank you for the correction.
I do it all the time.
As per usual, I'm running on next to no sleep whatsoever, but story of my life these days. So moving on to the next one. High school assistant principal and brother arrested for plotting to kill ICE agents. This it's only going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. They both look like they've got the SSRI stare to me, like they're SSRI pill popping, losers. But I'll go to you first, Randy, on this one. This is not an isolated incident, and it's not going to be an isolated incident. And we have crossed the Rubicon. We are not in America anymore. Not our America.
Well, I just think it's so funny in all these pictures we show. These are just two brothers, but even in all the No Kings, pictures that we saw of those little rants, there are all these old white people that look half cocked. These guys, you look right. You look at both of them, they don't look right. They don't look normal, And I was just thinking to myself, we've taken it in the short as white men lately. You know what I mean? And the last few years. And these two guys are the reason why. And people like them. Stop doing that stupid shit.
Yeah, so I got to address this while this is up here. So, Chad, you should stop talking shit. Randy was a Green Beret. He's a hero. He was blown up by an IED. Bottom half of his body absolutely torched, which is still a problem to this day. Lost a leg over it. Ended up going back to work at SOCOM again afterwards. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that you got shot with a 12-gauge shotgun, but Randy Nance is a true American hero. So, if you're going to talk shit, you need to talk shit on somebody else's podcast. I'm not going to stand for that crap at all. And whoever brought it to my attention.
And I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. I'm not hard to find, buddy.
Yeah. So that stuff just chaps my ass. So moving on to the next one here. This is a fairly lengthy post. I'm going to try and skip through it as best I can. But if you're not following Amy Mack, she's awesome. She is just incredibly thorough in the information that she puts out there. So national security threat. The Afghan terror pipeline didn't build itself. CARE helped fund it. We cannot pretend it's normal to have them operating on our soil anymore. An Afghan national, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, just drove across the country and ambushed 2 U.S. National Guard troops near the White House. This was not some random or spontaneous attack. It was targeted, which, by the way, I mentioned this yesterday and I hadn't shared it with the two of you. My suspicion is if there is a hand behind the scenes on this guy going to Washington, it was another probing attack. This is two blocks away from the White House. So whether or not he was under the direction of the Islamic Army or not, I guarantee you that they're walking away with this as far as intelligence is concerned on how long law enforcement took to react. Where did they come from? Where did they order people to exfil to? And in my opinion, there's a very good chance this was a probing exercise and they just picked a nutcase to go do it. So this man wasn't a refugee. He was a desperate migrant. He was CIA trained, part of the NDS 0 units, elite counterterrorism squads that ISIS-K, the Haqqani network, and Al-Qaeda heavily infiltrated, impersonated, and hunted after the fall of Kabul. His half-brother was a confirmed ISIS-K recruiter. ISIS channels immediately praised the attack. Now 2 American troops, Sarah Beckstrom, 20, and Andrew Wolf, are fighting for their lives. And unfortunately, as we reported at the opening, Sarah has passed away at 20 years old. Absolutely terrible. Within hours of the ambush, the U.S. government froze all Afghan immigration processing, something they should have done long ago. The U.S.-European pipeline has long been compromised. So you two didn't have the benefit of being on with Keith and I yesterday. The emails that were exposed in the Biden administration saying, do not vet these people, get as many of them on the planes, the C-17s, as you possibly can, and get them into the country right now, and don't worry about the vetting. Absolutely criminal how these people were brought from Afghanistan over here with no vetting whatsoever. So, Jeff, I'll go to you first again because you served in Afghanistan. I mean, you mentioned that if you take the wrong person and you bomb them or you hurt them, now you've just made another enemy. That actually came up in our conversation yesterday, where there's a lot of examples that we did do that in Afghanistan already.
Oh yeah, we've done it, many a time. But I think what they should have done, of course, hindsight being 2020, is okay. You want to get these guys on a plane because the country's going to shit, and some of them are your guys. Yeah, get them out. Bring them to the United States? How about no? How about take them to Diego Garcia and process them there? And then if you get the ones that are clean, okay, and you want to bring them in, fine, bring them in. But the ones that are not so good, you say, yeah, sorry, we're going to drop you somewhere else. Like, I don't know, Pakistan or anywhere. But to bring them here, as soon as they touch soil here, you've just created a legal quagmire. Actually, they should have flown them into Guantanamo, and then process them there and vet them and bring in the good ones, kick out the bad ones.
Yeah, exactly. Randy, you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm total agreement with that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's much more to add to it anyway. So before we go into the main subject of the night, I just want to quickly mention, if you go to survivaldispatch.news, our live videos, our streams are always at the top of the page, like right now. But if we're not live, it's not there. You will find it in the SITREP below it, which is here. But we're running for the first time ever a 50% off annual membership, Survival Dispatch Guardian memberships. So it's only $37.50, pardon me, for a 12-month membership that gets you access to 6 private Signal chats. Why are they on Signal? I come from high tech. Signal is open source. I've reviewed the source code in their GitHub hundreds of times, literally. There are no backdoors. The encryption algorithm hasn't been broken, and it's not a platform that people can be censored or kicked off of. Like Patreon, for example, they love to delete our articles and screw our shit up there. And I won't even go down the rabbit hole of CommieTube and the bullshit that they pull. But we've got this amazing community. We provided the area for them to do it, and we got these people built this amazing community. We've got channels that discuss survival prepping. We've got channels that discuss security bulletins and intel, the ThreatWire channel. We've got a general chat that gets 12,000 messages a week on average. It's insane, the amount of information. We also have, though, the Survival Dispatch emergency notification system there. So if American lives are in peril and we send out a Survival Dispatch emergency notification and you are a guardian, it goes to your email, it goes to our website. If you look up top, just above Randy's head to the right, you'll see SDNs. It goes there on our website for guardians. It goes to the SDNs channel in Signal, and it also goes to the POC-Link radios. So if you buy the POC-Link radios, we'll give you instructions on how to get these into the SDNs group. And if the network happens to go down or you're out of service, the smartphone app that goes with those phones records everything, and you can play back the emergency notifications. This Black Friday sale ends at midnight tonight. So it's a one and done. We've never done this before. Our mission is to dispatch information to our fellow Americans and friends of America so that everybody survives these very dangerous times. The more people we can get in, the better. And then there's another bonus piece to it. If you go to carnivault.com and you buy anything that's over $99, forward your receipt to support@survivaldispatch.com, and I will tack on another 3 months free to your annual membership. So 15 months, $37.50. That's $2.50 an hour. The emergency broadcast system went down yesterday. It was hacked. Most states didn't have it at all. It's crazy that here we are, a small group at Survival Dispatch, and our emergency notification system is predicated on multiple contingencies. So if something like that happens, there's all kinds of other stuff that you get, but those are the main things, that the main reasons that people sign up for Survival Dispatch Guardian membership. So you can sign up anywhere on our website before midnight tonight, $37.50 for your annual membership. Send me your receipt if you buy something from Carnival, $99+. I want to tack on another 3 months. I'm happy to do that for our friends over there. So with that being said, we are now into the first segment of the main topic of the night, which is, I coined the term, the great cyber game. So state to state in cyberspace, nations battling for dominance in AI, hacking, and critical infrastructure disruption, which Jeff and Randy and I have spoken to at length. So first and foremost, this is episode number 64 of a 144 episode series called the Long War series. Every single episode was designed to stand on its own, but the piece of context that you need is this is all predicated on post 9/11 2.0. What's 9/11 2.0? This is rock hard intel. General Flynn, to my face, not 2.5 weeks ago, confirmed the intel that Khalid has brought to the table, Sarah Adams, Jane Doe, and others. 9/11 2.0 is 10 to 15 tier 2 American cities being attacked simultaneously by 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each city, comprised of 4 to 12 jihadis in each one, hitting soft targets like schools, waiting for the first responders to show up. Secondary attack is they let off VBIEDs or other weapons, so vehicle-borne IEDs. The goal is to kill as many first responders as possible. If you remember nothing from this entire series, then this next part, make sure you pound this into your head. If you are so unfortunate as to get caught on the X when 9/11 2.0 kicks off, get as far away as fast as you can. Normalcy bias will kick in. And when the explosion, the gunfire stops, you'll be thinking, phew, I dodged a bullet and I survived. Yeah, no, you didn't, because all that was a ploy to draw in the first responders for the secondary and tertiary attacks, which will be even more significant. And as Keith spoke to yesterday from Christian Warrior Training, the number of law enforcement, paramedic, and National Guard uniforms stolen in the past couple of years is insane, not including ambulances that have been stolen, cop cars that have been stolen. They will be posing as first responders. You can't trust anybody when this kicks off. Just get distance equals safety. Get away from it. The soft targets will continue to be hit. They will bring all of the sleeper cells back together again at the Tier 1 Trauma Center Hospital, which on average has about 3,000 people between patients and staff. And they'll let off an IED, VBIED at the front door, kind of like Timothy McVeigh. Maybe not quite that large, but large enough that they siege the hospital, and they are going to kill, maim, torture Americans for as long as they can until we unsiege those buildings. It'll be a horror that we've never seen before. The world's never seen before. If you don't believe me, go check out Sarah Adams' stuff. Go check out Jane Doe's stuff on Sean Ryan. I mean, we've been tracking this for quite a while, and it's as solid of intel as you can possibly get. Why is the FBI denying it? Jeff, I'll let him explain that because he's spoken to it at length before, and I'll let him give you the Cliff Notes version on that. Suffice it to say, reeling it back in for tonight on the cyber front. So you've got nation states, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. They have spent years mapping our infrastructure, and meaning infrastructure that's connected to the internet, and positioning things like AI-powered cyber weapons. You know, they're autonomous, as they can make decisions on their own. So I think Skynet is the right word, but they will start to turn bits and pieces off here and there to enhance or amplify these attacks. Okay. The attacks, by the way, are predicated on what's called a CCTA, complex coordinated terrorist attack, coordinated by a command and control team in Afghanistan that is monitoring social media, monitoring news reports, and having these sleeper cells pivot as they go for maximum damage. It's the same thing that happened in Mumbai 2008. They had a remote command and control team that was telling them, stop, wait, you've got first responders on the way. When they get there, blow up the thing, kill as many as you can, then move on to the next spot. So again, they're deeply embedded in all of our systems. They know which systems to hit. They know when to hit them to cause maximum chaos. We're talking power grids, water systems, financial networks, comms networks, with the caveat that they're not going to turn off the grid across the nation and the internet across the nation, because they got to get the word out as far as just how bad we've suffered, how big of a hit that they've put on it. So we've essentially been asleep at the switch for years now. And all of those adversaries, the friend of my, the enemy of my enemy is a friend of mine. These guys are all buddies now. And, they've laid out some very sophisticated attacks against us. So picture this, you're scrolling through your news feed, you're having a coffee. It's probably around 9:30 Eastern time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, according to statistical analysis and intelligence. And all of a sudden you've got this whole thing starts kicking off, and you have our support systems going on and off in a very coordinated manner. So enough that you've got information, but then all of a sudden it's cut off, and now all you're hearing is rumors. You're seeing stuff pop up on social media that's done by bad actors. That's complete bullshit. And who do you trust? Which, by the way, our Guardian network, we've already seen instances where the legacy media and people on X have said, hey, this thing is going on in the city. And our people have said, the Guardians community has said, that's not what's going on. I was there. And this is what's really going on. So we can sidestep some of that baloney as well. But at the end of the day, you know, this isn't like some science, you know, fiction movie or anything like that. This is exactly everything I've already laid out, basically. It will also happen. It'll also affect, pardon me, financial systems. You got to have some cash in your, you know, get home bag, your go bag. Don't be caught without it, because you may not have any access to your money for weeks on end, if ever again. And if that sounds like hyperbole, the potential for this to be absolutely beyond catastrophic is significant. So at the end of the day, this is meant to amplify the effects of 9/11 2.0. So, Jeff, coming to you first, how can the average, let's say the average person who's not a survival dispatch guardian, what are some of the first things that they should be paying attention to say, holy shit, it's happening, and do something? Because there's always that window at the beginning of an SHTF event where you have a limited amount of time to get out before the roads are plugged up and you're stuck.
Well, if you're on the X or near the X, you're going to hear it. There's going to be explosions. There's going to be gunfire, and a lot of it. And then there's going to be the instant panic, you know, people fleeing, you know, cops coming in, things like that. If you're farther away, you know, and you're in your car and you're driving home or you're driving to work, you may not see anything right away. If you're not listening to the radio, you know, if you don't know what's going on, you roll up. And how many people on 9/11 didn't know anything was going on until they got to the office and turned on the TV, and someone says, hey, you got to watch TV. But you would look for fire trucks rushing in, police cars rushing in, smart people rushing out, going the opposite direction. And you've got to look at yourself and say, or ask yourself, okay, this isn't a normal traffic accident, building fire. This is way too much. It's way over the top. And that's when you may want to pull over, turn on the radio, see if you can hear anything that's going on. And when you see police cars and fire trucks rushing in a direction, the rubbernecker in you is going to say, hey, I'm going to go see what's going on. Fight that urge. Turn around and go the other way. I went to the University of Arizona, and in 1978, they had an A-7 aircraft crash on campus, and it was carrying two 500-pound bombs. Everybody ran towards the crash scene, except the military brats. They ran the opposite direction because they had grown up on Okinawa and places like that, and this, you know, during the Vietnam War, and they'd seen what happens when a B-52 full of bombs crashes on takeoff. So they said, when you see a plane crash, unless you're a fireman, you run the hell the other way. But people instinctively run towards chaos, not because they're trying to help, but because they're freaking curious. And curiosity killed the cat. Don't be a cat.
That's very well said. So, Randy, question for you here. If you could tell people, and you can tell people tonight, 3 things that they could do to put themselves in a better position if the shit were to hit the fan imminently, like tomorrow or over the weekend. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying if it were to, what 3 things would you recommend people do either tonight or first thing tomorrow?
Well, as we've always said, come up with a plan. What are you going to do when it does happen? You know, and then you need to come up with a plan, whether you're at work, you're at school, you're at home, you're at church, you know, because those will all be in different parts of town, most likely. And even if they're close together, you know, you've got your family. So I would come up with a plan of what you're going to do if something does happen tomorrow, you know, of course. And that also applies to, did it happen in your city or if it didn't, you know what I mean? Because even the people that didn't are going to sooner or later be affected. But either way, you would want to have some sort of plan. I would definitely stock up on some water and some ammo. You know what I mean? Whatever you have probably isn't enough, so I would get more. and food, some protein, buy some Carnival. You might want to hurry because they got to mail it to you. So, but, the third thing, I guess, prepare your home and or maybe your office in case something happens when you're there and you need to get out. You might want to position stuff in your house if you're going to leave. Like, depending on where you live, you may want to leave, or you may harden. It may be the other way around. You're going to stay at home. So maybe you just look around and make it a little harder to break into your house or what have you. One of the things I bought was the Fireball. You showed us the Fireball the other day. Get
They're
some
bad.
of those just in case some Molotov cocktails come flying in. It might even be your neighbor's house, but man, that stuff, any little thing you can do right now, it doesn't have to be expensive to help prepare yourself if something was to happen next week. I would say that's probably a good idea to go ahead and do.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Jeff, I've got one more question before we move on to segment number 2. Why are the larger adversaries like China and Russia setting things up for the cyber component?
Well, it's their way to provide support to the terrorists without providing direct military or kinetic support to the terrorists. The terrorists will have us distracted, obviously, and our attention will be on them. Then if they go after our power grid or pipelines or whatever, it just adds more fuel to that fire. And Russia is probably looking at it as, hey, you've been giving arms to the Ukrainians for the last 3 or 4 years. Well, here's a sharp stick in your eye. And China is like, well, anything that weakens the U.S. militarily without totally undercutting their economy because we want their money also benefits them. And anything that would cause the United States to pull its forces back in country for protection, to protect the country than opposed to overseas. If your country's in total chaos, you're not going to be deploying, a fleet somewhere.
Right.
You're probably going to keep them home.
Yeah, Keith and I actually discussed that yesterday. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing it back up again. A couple quick things here before we go into segment number 2 that it looks like I missed earlier. Number 1, there have been a handful of trolls I've removed from various live chats tonight saying that this is never going to happen. And, my response to that's always the same. If you think that we left the door open for 4 years and flooded the country with millions of people, many of whom hate our guts and way of life, and there will be no repercussions, man, I got some oceanfront property to sell you in Arizona. I mean, that's about as retarded as it gets. Somebody earlier tonight asked a question. Did Trump say there were 53 million illegals in the country? I haven't heard him say that, but I can tell you from guys like JJ Carroll, 24-year CBP special agent, that there is somewhere around 50 million illegals. But add this to your calculus. There's another 50 million people here on visas. Many of them overstay their visas, and then they fall into the category of illegal aliens. But that's 100 million people that are not Americans that are in the country. I'm not saying they're all bad people, not even close, but that drives up the cost of a lot of stuff. More demand, less supply, higher prices. It's why there's been this massive housing crunch. So at the very least, the 50 million illegals, they got to go. And some of these people here on visas, especially H-1B visas, they got to go too, because it's bullshit. I'm not a union guy. We've discussed this. But 15 years ago, when Walt Disney said to their IT support team, which was many hundreds of people, some of whom had worked for them for 30 years, oh, by the way, the next 3 months, you're going to train your replacements from India, and then you're fired. And that's bullshit. That is not America first. That's not pro-American. And before I forget, just a slightly off topic, then I'll get into segment 2. If you sign up for Survival Dispatch News Guardian program and you don't see the instructions in your inbox shortly thereafter, check your spam folder. Everybody gets sent a list of instructions. It's really easy. Just click and it'll make all the things happen for you. And the next part of that is, listen, I get 300 to 500 legitimate emails per day, 7 days a week. I triage them. I answer about 80% of them. It's the best that I can do. I do not check direct messages on any platform. I do not answer direct messages on any platform. Not because I don't care what you have to say or reaching out. I simply don't have the time. The entire team will tell you I work 16 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for a whole bunch of reasons. The biggest one, we're trying to get information out so our fellow Americans can be, as safe and best position as possible during this crap. So if you sent me a DM and I didn't answer it, I don't check DMs. I don't have time. Email support@survivaldispatch.com.
I think Randy needs to bail on us.
Yeah, I'm gonna go before you move on, Chris.
Okay. Well, listen, Randy, we appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll talk soon. Godspeed.
Yep. Thank you. And just for those, I agree with Chris. You know what I mean? For one, if nothing else, you should sound the air of caution, right? Really, you should. And you can't just dismount. I'm referring to the people that say, oh, this is never going to happen. Hey, well, I wouldn't put it past them. As you mentioned, a lot of people came in, and there is a force out there that wants to change this country fundamentally. So with that, good evening, guys. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you Monday.
Thanks, Randy.
Yep.
So I would just add this to what Randy just said is everything that we have counseled our audience to do prepares you for any calamity. So if you live in Florida like we do, everything that you stack up, food, water, ammunition, getting training, all of these things put you in a better position when a calamity hits. Wildfires, Southern California, snowstorms, northeast, all of those things. So even if we're wrong, which we're not, and the evidence is very compelling. Again, when I have a conversation with General Flynn face to face, and he says to me, Chris, I was the head of the DIA, right? And I said, yes, sir. He said, we have mountains of hard evidence that support all of the stuff you guys have been talking about for months now on your podcast. I've been working with his assistant, Melissa, for a couple of years, and she introduced me as the guy with the 9/11 2.0 podcast. So with that being said, we're going to accelerate things a little bit now that it's just Jeff and I. In segment number 2, I titled Echoes of 9/11 in the Digital Shadow. So if you were around and you remember how 9/11 1.0 blindsided us with planes turned into weapons, now imagine that scale, but invisible. Okay. You've got hackers syncing up to do everything from, blacking out all the computer systems that run everything in the country, not all at once, very, strategically picking the pieces that will inflict the most damage. But the best way to think of this will be like a digital Pearl Harbor that's not just the kinetic stuff that goes into the logical stuff, which is cyber attacks. So all of these secondary, tertiary measures that the bad guys have put in place, they've done all of these things. As I said, it's to hit us harder, increase the element of surprise. And, it also allows people to attack us that aren't even in the country. They're not here. There's virtually zero risk of us interdicting them. And Jeff spoke to this, as far as SCADA systems are concerned. Turn off the water pumps, kill the systems that run all the water pumps, your municipal water supply, all kinds of things like that. We had a sewer main and a water main burst beside each other during Hurricane Andrew. We had no water for weeks. If you think having no power sucks, try having no power and no water. Now, thankfully, we were prepped, but a lot of people, it was pretty dang, painful for them. So, I think what's scarier here, though, the 9/11 1.0 is what's going to happen in the aftermath. 9/11 2.0 is not a one and done. 9/11 2.0 is the beginning of a new world order where we will have terrorist attacks on a frequent basis, much like the Middle East, for the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, grandkids' lives. We have literally been invaded by the enemy, and they are licking their chops at the prospect of getting extreme retribution against us. They've announced they want retribution. They want retribution against GWAT vets. They want GWAT vets to feel the same stress and fear here that they did in their home countries. So, Jeff, you're an author as well, and you've written some really awesome books. Give me your thoughts on the top ways that the cyber attacks amplify the kinetic attacks to just make it that much more painful for us.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be huge. They can be very selective, very surgical. Okay, this goes on, and they take down the 911 system. People can't call in, people freak out. Someone has a heart attack, they can't call the hospital, they can't call the paramedics. Then you take down the cell phone network. We saw that last year, where a big chunk of the cell phone network crashed due to a hacking attack. And what that does is then people can't call their loved ones. They can't check to see if mom and dad or their daughter or son are okay. And what that does is that increases the sense of dread, of panic, of apprehension. And this is all psychological. These people aren't in physical danger, but psychologically you're toying with them. Then you shut down traffic control systems in cities. All the lights turn green, or all the lights go out, or all the lights turn red, and traffic just becomes, gridlock. And you've got people trying to get to schools to pick up their kids, or trying to, maybe get to the drugstore to get, that last minute prescription that they need, but they can't because the traffic is gridlocked. Then on top of that, police, firemen, National Guard are trying to get in to fight the terrorist attacks, and they've turned the citizens into a weapon to keep the police from getting to where they need to be because they've screwed up traffic that bad. Now, are any of these huge systems? No. Are they relatively easy to get into? Yeah, sure. We've seen it before. But if you do it in a coordinated manner, and you do it this one, and then this one, and then this one, it just amplifies and then people have a sense of helplessness. Police can't get to them. Firemen can't get to them. Ambulance can't get to them. They can't call their kids. They can't get to the school to pick up their kids. You're going to see some people freaking out. And you think, you talk about code black. That's going to be code black. People are going to panic.
Yeah, big time. So I've got another question for you, but I want to pull this up just because you touched on it. So this is back beginning of October. For those of you who didn't hear about this, federal agents discovered additional locations and more equipment as they work to determine the ultimate goal of what the U.S. Secret Service said was China Link plot that could have crippled every cell phone tower in the nation's largest city, jammed 911 calls, and unleashed chaos. So basically, these were farms of telco equipment that could place hundreds of thousands of calls simultaneously to, it's called a DDoS, a distributed denial of service attack, to overwhelm infrastructure for the 911 systems, amongst other systems. And we've found several locations where there's been a massive amount of this equipment. This equipment is highly controlled. So when I say I came from high tech, I also come from the telco side of the equation. Did a lot of work with Nortel back in the day, and all of these types of equipment you can't buy unless you are a telco, meaning AT&T, Verizon, etc. And it could only have been put in place and done by the Chinese, period. Even the Russians don't manufacture this stuff to the volume that China does. So there's no question what the source of that was. And as far as China is concerned, they want to be the world superpower. So they want to weaken us so they are the world superpower, but they don't want to weaken us so much that they don't make money off of us because we're their number one, source of money, economically speaking. So with that being said, Jeff, I want to go to the next question here on my list. And I'm curious what you think of the lack of public awareness on the part of government agencies. And does it matter? Like if there was a massive public awareness campaign put out there by DHS, let's say, and everything that falls under DHS, would it make a difference, or would it just be tilting at windmills?
To do it at this late hour, I'd say it's pretty much tilting at windmills because it's a new thing, and it's for the 99.9% of the population who aren't paying attention. They're not going to believe it anyway. You could put it in. How would you get it out? You'd have to get it out on every news channel, every TV show, everything else. But there's a lot of them that just wouldn't put it out no matter what. just because either they don't believe it or they think, well, this is something that the Trump administration is pushing, and if they're for it, we're against it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess there's lots of motivations. I personally think that the only thing, that we can do at this point in time is try to help prepare people as best as possible and have our audience educate their circles. That's pretty much, there's no avoiding it, right? So we're going to be reactive, but let's try to be in the best position for being reactive. So with that being said, we're going to jump into segment number 3. I titled it the heavy hitters in the cyber arena. So basically at the heart of this, it's really China and Russia, to a lesser extent, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea. And they've got these alliances where they're putting together teams of cyber warriors. They're putting together all these AI bots, just waiting there to be activated. And what that means is that they've planted the code behind a firewall in a network with very specific circumstances where it gets triggered and goes off, and of course amplifies all this kinetic stuff. So the cyber attacks are absolutely not lone wolves. These are state machines. These have budgets bigger than some countries do for their entire GDP. And they're training these hackers, these black hat hackers, essentially like soldiers. And they're using everyday tech now. And I've been saying this for years, and I come from high tech. Why in God's green earth do we need refrigerators connected to the internet? The Chinese company who makes the Roombas, for example, there's all kinds of evidence that they have used the Roombas to spy on Americans and to map your frigging home out. Now, imagine if we ever did have a Red Dawn, which I don't think we will, but imagine we had a Red Dawn and a team of special forces, Chinese special forces, comes into your neighborhood and they know everything as far as you, the people in your family, the people under your roof, what you have for pets. Oh, be careful. They've got, whatever, Rottweilers, and knowing the layout of your house, how well equipped they would be to attack you. I mean, this is a extremely complex scenario here. And the interesting thing, and we've commented on this with regards to the jihadis, but all of our enemies seem to be playing the long game. And, we can't pay attention to something for 30 seconds. Oh, look, squirrel, poof, and we're gone off to the next thing, but these guys are seriously playing the long game. So let me just pull this up from Mario Narwhal, pardon me. So China's hackers are setting traps, not stealing jewels. Forget smash and grab. Beijing is planting digital landmines across U.S. systems so they can flip the switch later. They're hacking water utilities, ports, telecom networks, and even endpoint security tools, all while pretending to be quiet. One group, Volt Typhoon, has tunneled so deep into U.S. infrastructure it could mess with everything from pipelines to your tap water. Salt Typhoon, which is another group, reportedly tapped the phones of Trump, Vance, and top officials. Silk Typhoon, another contingent of these guys, breached the Treasury, dropped zero-day exploits. Zero-day exploit means that they've taken advantage of an exploit in technology that nobody knew about previous to that day. So 0 day. There was no time to recognize it, patch it, and fix it. And even filed patents for custom cyber weapons, which blows me away. Hacking into our system like USPTO and filing patents for custom cyber weapons that they're using against us. It's mind-boggling. Chinese state hackers now use private contractors, so it's all deniable until it's not. So at the end of the day, China is preparing for war on the internet, but even worse than that, they're preparing the internet for war. And, there's a ton of information out there on this. You go look it up. CrowdStrike in particular has a fair bit of information on this over the years. Some of the other sources that this guy quotes, I'm not super big on them. But Jeff, I'm curious what your thoughts are as far as the AI race is concerned. Let's start there. What have you seen coming from China that looks like they're getting ready to outpace us as far as AI is concerned? DeepSeek comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, they came out with a less expensive version of GPT chat, and everybody was blown away by it. But once they looked under the hood, it turns out it wasn't quite as great as everyone thought it was, and it wasn't as good as the Chinese sold it as, which is typical Chinese. I mean, the one I saw the other day that just cracked me, it was Iran. They had a trade show where they unveiled these robots. Well, they were people in robot costumes, but they were trying to tell everybody they were AI robots. But China's got they've got some very good capabilities because they've invested in the time and the people to do it where we haven't. I mean, it's a cottage industry over there. And a lot of these systems that they're going to attack, our systems, they aren't little one-offs. They take years to map out and to identify the weaknesses and, you know, the ways to get into the system, the gateways, the portals, the phone numbers. You know, how do you access that system? And then what do you do once you're inside that system? And that takes time, it takes money, it takes people, and they've invested in it.
So again, coming from high tech, but you coming from the CIA, we both know this. I don't know that everybody does. We're a whole lot better going on the attack than we are defending against this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What are from your purview, what are the things that we needed to do yesterday to protect against this that we're too late now?
Well, we needed to harden our systems, and, you know, buying the latest version of Norton, virus software ain't it. Right. And a lot of these systems need to be air gapped, meaning they don't connect to the internet at all, because that's your weakness. And the most secure systems, you know, are the ones that are air gapped. You can't remotely log into them at all. You know, if you log in, you got to be in the room with the computer, with the CPU, and there's not a wire that goes to the wall. We haven't done that with our vital systems. And we also need to have better intrusion detection systems.
IDS.
You know, that's the most important thing. So when something's happening, you see it, you see what they're attacking, what they're trying to do. And then you say, okay, now that's on their list. So then you can, you know, that identifies potential problems, you can harden those.
So let me just bring up a number of articles. By all means, just stop me at any particular point in time if you want to comment on them, Jeff. So this is a 2.5 minute video. I'm not going to play. I just really wanted to show the image here. So this is one of the cell phone farms that was identified and caught by the Secret Service in New York, New Jersey, surrounding areas. So they seized hundreds of servers, 100,000 SIM cards, could have blasted out 30 million texts at one point in time to shut down all service. And all of this equipment that you can see here, and I'll zoom in a little bit, all of that equipment is heavily controlled and regulated. You can't just go out and buy this stuff, which is why it comes back 100% to China. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's some people outside the country that are doing a better job of covering this. So from the Asia Times, U.S. and its allies are undergoing a digital Pearl Harbor attack. Cybersecurity model certification program is a positive step, but Chinese have already stolen massive amounts of technology. Let's ruminate on this for a second, Jeff. As far as the cultural differences between us and the Chinese, in China, innovation is akin to gambling, and it's very frowned upon. They much prefer that people just steal shit instead of inventing it. Maybe speak to that a little bit, because, man, they're like the masters of thievery in my mind.
Oh, yeah. They've been doing it for years. Just an example, there was a guy in the Orlando area who had a very unique technology that was used, you know, it wasn't defense, but it was in advertising. It was have to do with fiber optics and things like that. And he, and they were trying to expand, and it was all proprietary. But his system kept, as a factory, the equipment kept failing, and they would have to repair it, and it would fail, and repair it, and it'd fail. Well, then he ended up firing his chief maintenance guy, and a lot of their problems went away because the guy was kind of sabotaging. Well, a couple of years later, he was in China, and of course, the Chinese start making a product almost identical to his, and he visits that company and goes to their factory. They had his exact system, because what happened was his maintenance guy had been recruited by the Chinese and was basically stealing his proprietary equipment one piece at a time. and shipping it back to China.
Yeah. And that's one example, right? I mean, if
Yeah, and there's tons of it. Well, the Russians did it too. There was a guy who worked on the Buran, which was the Russians' equivalent of the space shuttle. And this is dated, obviously. And someone said, why does the Buran, the Russian space shuttle, look so much like the American space shuttle? And their standard response was, aerodynamic requirements, it's just physics. That's the way it has to look. Well, then after the wall comes down, we get these Russian scientists, and they're like, and they were just laughing. They go, we wouldn't even use blueprints unless they were stamped NASA.
Yeah, that just blows me away. Here's a post by the FBI. The FBI and our partners urge network defenders to read new advisory on Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors who continue to target networks across the globe, particularly in telecommunications, transport, lodging, and military infrastructure sectors, publicly known as Salt Typhoon, Ghost Emperor, and other terms. These cyber actors target and modify routers to maintain long-term access to company networks. They exploit publicly known CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures, and other avoidable weaknesses in critical infrastructure. So there's a plethora of information out there of this type when it comes to China and Russia. So here's one from China. Cyber attacks against the U.S. Russian intelligence disguises as criminal groups. So Russia is attempting to gain covert access to U.S. urban infrastructure. This was confirmed by a cyber attack on the American engineering company carried out by Russian state actors using Romcom and SOC ghoulish intrusion channels typically employed by criminal groups. So question for you on that, Jeff, before we get into the next segment. Why would the state actors, China and Russia in particular, try to make it look like it was a third party? It's this black hat group. It has nothing to do with us.
Well, two reasons, actually. One, they aren't necessarily trying to make it look like those guys. It is those guys. They're hiring those guys.
Fair enough, yeah.
And if you want to break into a system, hire the best hacker you can find. And hackers are either black hat in the private sector or they're white hat in the government sector. Well, the best ones tend to be attracted to the private sector because they're doing it for kicks. Or not the private sector. I mean, they're doing it on their own, and then maybe they get scooped up by somebody later. The joke is you find the hacker who hacked your system, then you hire him to defend your system. But the other one is this plausible deniability. We catch them, hey, don't look at us, man. It's just some bad guys, some criminals. Yeah, we'd stop them too if they were hitting our system. Glad you caught them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So we're going to move into segment number 4, cracking the backbone, which I would refer to as power, water, and wallets. So basically these groups like Salt Typhoon and the rest of them, they zero in on the stuff that we can't live without. So power grids, being taken down, flickering out, leaving hospitals on generators, traffic lights dark, and water treatment plants glitching. And I want to come back just quickly to the hospitals on generators. So coming from high tech, there was a fire in a substation in Long Island, early 2000s, like 2002-3 timeframe. And it took down the entire Northeast and parts of Canada as well. And so for this stuff is, it's really easy to cascade is essentially what I'm getting at there. Here's what happened. All of the data centers in the Northeast that had natural gas generators, they went down as well because the pumps that feed the natural gas to them went down and there wasn't enough pressure in the gas lines to keep the generators up and running. We had a ton of clients that were in that position that learned afterwards, if we're really going to have power redundancy in our data centers, we better have a shit ton of propane on hand in addition to relying on natural gas, from third party sort of thing. So with that being said, we're going to go into segment 4. There's always 5 segments for those of you who join us for the first time. And again, this is cracking the backbone, power, water, and wallets. So in addition to that stuff, imagine financial networks being jacked up. So ATMs don't spit out any cash. Paychecks don't get to your bank account by ACH. Swift money transfers are done. There's no wires. And add that on top of that, comms going down, which is why we push comms so much. Like food, water, shelter, yes, those are the most important things. After that, there's a whole bunch of things that are equally important, and comms would be one of them. Obviously, defending yourself and your family is right there as well. But when that happens, there's no 911. So, I mean, it couldn't think of a better example of you being your own first responder in a, apocalyptic scenario sort of thing. But again, none of this stuff will unfold randomly. These guys have been strategizing this for many, many years. I mean, heck, it was almost 10 years ago. The Chinese said, yeah, we have access to the 24 largest infrastructure networks in the United States, and didn't even give a shit that they were saying that publicly. And that's their way of posturing and basically saying, we got you by the short and curlies, and don't think we won't use it against you. So again, they have a blueprint here. They want to break our morale. They want to force emergency responses that we don't have in place. Most law enforcement agencies are nowhere near being prepared for what's fixing to unfold. I talk to guys in law enforcement on a daily basis. I have access to intel like Clede does and the other guys. I just sent one to Randy and Jeff today that's not for public consumption, and says a whole lot when it comes to the lack of preparedness that our law enforcement agencies have for this stuff. So let's start with power, Jeff, just because that's the one thing that freaks people out more than anything. How vulnerable is our power grid? Let me just preface that by saying we have 55,000 substations, 3 networks, 3 grids, East, West, Texas. 9 of the 55,000 substations, take them out, you take power out to 95% of the country. Beyond that, which would be catastrophic. Think in terms of pockets. What were our greatest vulnerabilities here, Jeff?
Well, the grid's vulnerable both physically, kinetically, taking out a high-powered rifle and punching a hole in the transformer, and electronically getting into SCADA systems and, throwing switches, overloading circuits, that kind of thing. And you can cause a lot of mayhem. And if it starts and they just start turning stuff off, and then they say, okay, the power company turns a lot of stuff off and says, okay, we'll turn it back on one at a time. The old-fashioned way, that requires someone getting in a truck, driving out in the middle of nowhere where that substation is or that switch is, and physically throwing the switch, because you no longer trust your SCADA system to do it for you. You're all of a sudden working in the 1960s. But you can do it selectively by taking out power feeding a major city. Not that hard to do, because cities, if you look at them, they don't have local generation. There aren't nuclear power plants in New York City. You don't find a big coal plant in the middle of Chicago. You used to in the old days, but you don't anymore for pollution and things like that. So the power is brought in from outside. In New York, for example, the power brought in from upstate New York, and I'm not going to say where they are. Basically, most of it comes in through 2 rather large substations. You take out those 2 substations, New York City goes down. The grid collapses. And they have ties to, there's some generation in Long Island, not a lot. They can bring power in from New Jersey through cables under the New York Harbor, but that's not nearly enough to maintain the city's power grid.
So let's move into water. But as you're, expressing your thoughts on this, number one, explain to the audience who aren't familiar with the term SCADA systems. Number 2, what are the things, that aren't overly complex and expensive that we could do to secure our water treatment plants? So SCADA first, then that.
Okay, SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System. It's just basically a big computer system that instead of having a person go out and open a valve or throw a switch, the computer does it for you. And it can run any large system. It can be water system, treatment plant, all the way down to your house. It can be, a gas pipeline, and what's most commonly people associated with is electricity. But any system can be run through a SCADA, any kind of a industrial size, industrial scale system. And they've been doing this for many years now. And they've gotten more and more complex and, and more capable, but they also makes them more and more vulnerable. And they instantly monitor the system and adjust for, a power outage here, a voltage surge here, a low pressure in this pipeline here. They will automatically kick on a pump somewhere to boost the pressure or bleed pressure down another line if there's too much. They're very, very good at what they do, which is why we have a system that works most of the time, but we haven't really invested a lot in it lately. We haven't added a lot of transmission and generation. We just get much better at managing what we have.
So what are the things that we could do relatively quickly, though, on the water? Just pivot from the grid to the water supply.
Well, water supply, because in most cities is gravitational. You have a water tower which keeps the pressure up, and then you've got to use pumps to refill those water towers. One thing you could do is, I don't want to say just unplug the SCADA system, but put in a command and an authorization method where the computer says, okay, you need to open this valve, but it can't open the valve itself. It just sends a message to an operator who then says, yeah, okay, I need to open that valve. And then he opens the valve. Because that way, if it says, okay, yeah, open this valve, and if he can look at it and go, wait a minute, we're experiencing low pressure. Why are we opening a valve to pour water into the river? That makes no sense. They will be able to detect nonsensical orders from the system. The system will just do what it's told. So I almost think you need a human in the middle to basically say, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do it. Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Let's take a breath and figure this out. And then he'd pick up the phone and call somebody and say, wait a minute, are you having a low voltage over there? And if they go, no, we're having a high voltage over here. Then they can go, okay, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, good answer. So last one in segment number 4, if and when a comms blackout hits, how long before cities, grind to a complete halt as far as productive stuff, but turn into absolute mayhem? How long before that happens in an urban environment?
Productive stuff stopping would probably be a day. Think about your office. How many people what can you do at your work if you don't have, because comms includes computers.
Right.
So you're not going to do anything on your computer. You're not going to be able to call anybody. The only ones who could probably maybe keep working for a little bit would be, construction guys, as long as they don't need computers to tell them, where the bulldozer needs to go. But then after about 3 days, you're going to slip into mayhem, because that's when the stores run out of food, because they won't be able to reorder food on day one. Once the comms go down, they're stuck with what they have on the shelves.
Yeah, which basically referred to as
3PL,
4PL, 5PLs. Yeah. So what Jeff's getting at there is that everything is pretty much JIT these days. Your typical grocery store has 3 days of food on the shelf. When a product drops to a certain stock number, if I'll just go with 3PL, so it stands for third party logistics. What it does is it sends out a PO to the distribution center, sends out a bill of lading to the logistics company, and so on. It's all automated. There is no, pen and paper backup to that system. So there'll be a run on food very quickly. And, if you think people are crazy for beating the hell out of each other on Black Friday for a TV, wait till you see what happens when there's no food. I've been saying for years now, we're never more than 3 missed meals away from anarchy. So with that being said, as we're pivoting into the final chapter 5, I just want to bring up a few different things here. So 2024 FBI and CISA expose Volt Typhoon, which is the People's Republic of China state hackers pre-positioning malware in U.S. energy, water, and transport for future disruptive attacks. So the risk to Texas Energy in particular. Texas operates 7 independent grids. That's inside of them being considered one grid on a national level, with ERCOT handling 90% of the state's load. As of 2025, ERCOT has seen explosive growth in BESS, with over 2 gigawatts added in Q3 alone, pushing total capacity toward 12 gigawatts. More than 1,000 battery projects are planned, many potentially incorporating Chinese components, heightening risk of cyber vulnerabilities or supply disruptions. PRC, People's Republic of China, PRC actors could exploit these for real-world harm, as warned in Bill GA49. Broader trends of CCP PRC infiltration via ESG and climate policy, so environmental social guidance baloney. The CCP has capitalized on U.S. ESG mandates and climate goals to infiltrate supply chains by dominating solar and BESS markets through predatory pricing and state subsidiaries. PRC firms embed technologies that could serve as backdoors for espionage or sabotage. So what that's basically saying, it's not a piece of software that gets executed by an operating system. It's a piece of software that is in the silicon. It's in the chip on the motherboard. It's essentially risk computing, reduced instruction set. Moving on to the next one here. And again, I just want to show you a few of these before we get into the final one. This is another picture of the SIM farms that have been found. There have been 5 of them found now that it's been publicly released. The only reason I brought this one up, exclusive. China behind massive nationwide SIM farm network that directly threatens American critical infrastructure. There's nobody else who can build and acquire that type of technology at that type of volume other than the Chinese, because nobody else makes it like they do. Next one, seems the USG has evidence that PRC linked actors built a capability to take down American telecom networks while operating in the US. Federal agents discovered additional locations and more equipment as they worked to determine the ultimate goal of what the U.S. Secret Service said was a China-linked plot that could have crippled every cell tower in the nation's largest city, jammed 911 calls, and unleashed chaos on communication networks. So with that being said, Dr. Mike and I are approximately 3 weeks out on our next big comms video. We've been working feverishly on multiple different packages that we can recommend to y'all. We don't sell hardware. We recommend hardware. Sometimes we partner with companies, but most of the time we just say, hey, this is the thing that you want. Go buy it for all of these particular reasons. So from a comms perspective, beyond your cell phone, you need to have multiple layers. So there's an old adage that says 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is 2. And I can hear JP saying right now, Jason P saying, oh, that's Chris though. He's like 100's 99, 99's 98. And he's right, especially if you saw my work table right now with the plethora of stuff on it. But at the end of the day, you got to have multiple layers. I know Father Duck will probably chime in here because this is an area of expertise he has as well. So things like Garmin Mini and Garmin Messenger devices that connect to the Iridium network, that's the cheapest way you're going to access the Iridium network for satellite comms. But there's some great deals right now on Starlink, which is another option. So for example, if you were using, a software-based comms like Signal, like we use, you'd be able to send it up to Starlink and down to somebody else who's also on Starlink with no requirement on ground infrastructure in between there. But what do you do beyond that? What happens if we're in a true Walking Dead scenario? There's only one comm solution for Walking Dead, and that's shortwave high frequency, shortwave HF. But shortwave HF has typically been, looked upon by the average person as complex and expensive. So Dr. Mike and I are putting packages together, one that's under $1,000, the second that's under $2,000, so that you truly have a solution when things go to ship. But, and there's always a but, the thing is with close range HF, it either bounces across the ground. Well, that ain't going to happen here in Florida because our sandy, dry soil, it has no conductivity to it. It's essentially glass, right? Glass isn't exactly a great conductor. So it's called NVIS, near vertical. So you send a wave up, it hits the ionosphere, comes down, bounces off the ground. Well, from where you are to the person that you're communicating, there's what's called the skip window. It goes up and it comes down and it misses this window in between. You'll find people say, oh, it's only 3 to 5 miles. I'm telling you right now that in some instances it's far, far more than that, 25 miles plus. So shortwave HF may be your Walking Dead solution, but you may have to overcome what's going on in that skip window. So do you have GMRS or ham radios? If you do you have antennas that are high enough? Because now you're talking VHF and UHF that's line of sight. So if there's an oak tree in the way, a building in the way, you're not getting those signals through it. Shortwave HF is the only one that bounces up and down off the ionosphere. So stay tuned for that. That's coming 3 to 4 weeks. We've been working every weekend, long hours to try to put that together for y'all. And it's interesting. I love it as a tech guy, and I love comms. But I'll tell you what, it's kind of expensive, and I'm kind of in trouble. I'm kind of in the doghouse because I might have spent too much money on it, according to my wife, and she's the boss when it comes to money. So segment number 5, locking down the front lines, fight back or fold. So to push back, we really need ironclad defenses, starting with AI-powered firewalls and IDSs, intrusion detection systems that sniff out intruders and brings quick reactionary things. It's always reactionary when it comes to black hats versus white hats, but AI could be very powerful there. Here's the problem though. We're not there, and the window of opportunity is not great enough. So the attack window, according to General Flynn and according to Sarah and Khalid and others, is mid-December to mid-February, but something could potentially happen before then. Khalid has brought some really good information to the table. When the Pakistanis hit Kabul last month, they may have knocked out enough of the command and control infrastructure to push the delay out a little bit, like make it a March, April timeframe. So command and control means you can't do these CCTAs, complex coordinated terrorist attacks, without a command and control center. Think like Johnson Space Control on steroids, where people are monitoring social media and news to tell these jihadis, the sleeper cells, to pivot here and pivot there for maximum input. But at the end of the day, there's a couple things that you can do right now that are really simple things from a tech perspective. Check your passwords, change your passwords, make them something better than, a simple word. And that will help a little bit. It's not like a panacea, but taking some action on your part is better than taking no action. Look, if you use Google Chrome or any derivative of it like Brave, etc., you'll see in the password keeper, it'll flat out tell you these passwords have been compromised. So go check the password manager in your web browser, and when it pops up and says these passwords have been compromised, go change them. It's not that hard. But at the end of the day, we're not going to win this on the cyber front either. We've just let too much bad stuff happen for too many years, and we're not prepared. Now, we do have tremendous offensive capabilities, and I would say, coming from the tech world, that's because there's more, glory to it, to being the guy who took down the bad guy, as opposed to being the Maytag repairman who's trying to guard it. So, Jeff, I'm wondering if anything crosses your mind at all that you can think of that the federal government could flick the switch on. Oh, it looks like Jeff froze up. Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, your video's froze up.
No, let me see if I can fix that.
Is there anything, while you're doing that, is there anything that you could think of that the feds could flick the switch on immediately and put us in a better position as far as the cyber component to 9/11 2.0 is concerned?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything they could just flip a switch on. If it was that simple, they would have just flipped the switch. I think that's just an oversimplification. It doesn't work that way.
Okay, so I don't disagree. Like, I think you're right. I guess the next part to it is, when we're attacked and we don't have the defenses in place, and we go out and we attack them and return cyber-wise, can we do anything else to react? Can we hit them kinetically? Can we hit them with sanctions? Like, what are our options as far as reacting to this stuff, and maybe hopefully hitting them hard enough that they take their foot off the gas?
Well, sanctions, they take time. They don't work right away. You could do stuff to them cyber-wise, because they've mapped our systems. I'm sure we've mapped theirs. We could kind of do the same thing. We can turn off parts of their grid like they turn off parts of our grid. And a lot of the software on the systems that they use, software was written here. So, we're familiar with it. Kinetically, yeah, they've got some of the same weaknesses and choke points that we do. You can take out, you could, if you want to go so far as to launch a missile, you can send a cruise missile and take out a large a large transformer system or a large, the distribution system for electricity, and they'll have the same problems we will. One of the reasons they're building so many coal and nuclear plants is because they are hungry for power, for energy. So they're as vulnerable to that as we are. So yeah, you can do to them what they're doing to you. It's not going to fix yours, though.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is I keep saying this, and I sound like a Luddite, but decouple the systems, decouple the networks. I'd rather have 10 standalone networks and lose one of them than have one big network and lose the whole thing all at once.
So I have a thought that I want to run by you, and just give me 2 seconds to gather my thoughts on it while I address something really quickly here. So Half Truth 708, you can fuck off and die, and the horse you rode in on as well. You motherfuckers, anti-American sons of bitches, you're not going to pollute my comment section. You're not going to mess with our community. And if you're so fucking brave, you fucking keyboard coward, come and say it to somebody's face like me, Randy, Jeff, Mike Glover, any of us, instead of hiding behind your keyboard like a fucking punk. You're out of here. You're fucking done, you piece of shit. All right, poof, gone. There goes that. I don't have enough time to monitor all of the live chat when I'm producing as well, but I'm not going to put up with that anti-American shit whatsoever, and go spread your crap elsewhere. And if somebody else wants to pick up where that asshole left off, I'm just as happy to kick you out of here as well. So with that being said, Jeff, here's my thought. Can we preemptively, like meaning right now, go hit Russia and China with a cyber attack that is so crazy that we force a Cold War situation where it's essentially mutually assured destruction from a cyber perspective?
Well, if you're doing a cyber attack, it is an attack, and then you run the risk of it going Connecticut. What would we do if tomorrow China shut down all of our power grid and shut down all of our water treatment plants and everything else? We would look at that as an act of war.
100%.
And I'm sure they would look at it the same way too. But what you've got to do is let them know, and know in certain terms, you do this crap, we know it's you. So if it happens, we're blaming you. And guess what? The gloves are coming off.
Yeah.
We reserve the right to respond, not in kind, but geometrically in kind. It's one of those, you punch me, you get a sandwich, I'm going to get a meal.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're much more pragmatic than I am. So I knew you would have plus my watch is going off telling me I got elevated. These chicken shits, I hate keyboard cowards, man. They piss their friggin' pants if they ever came face to face with a real man. Anyway, with that being said, and good thoughts as far as the preemptive measures are concerned, but at the end of the day, let's just stitch this whole thing together with a couple quick bullets. Number one, we have terrorists here because of failed policies, federal agencies ignoring warnings, China and Russia. We let them break into all of our critical infrastructure, and we haven't done shit about it. We could sit here and rail against this. We could demand accountability from negligent officials. It's not going to happen fast enough. So you need to get prepared yesterday. That means you have to have ways to generate power. One of the best ways is dual power generators. So propane and gas. Gas, you have to cycle every 90 days. The octane goes down. You got to octane boost it. It gets volatile. It'll turn into turpentine essentially. If you have anything that has, jets in it, like a carburetor, it'll plug them up solid. So propane's a much better option. It's typically a little bit more expensive, but we stack up propane barbecue tanks. So you get propane barbecue tanks, you run your generator off of those. I'm not telling you to do anything, but I'm telling you straight up that in the construction industry, we run huge propane powered heaters. Nobody dies from carbon monoxide heat exposure inside and confined spaces. So what we do, I run our generator in our mudroom and I crack the window. There's a reason I don't put it outside, because when Hurricane Charlie hit us 20 years ago, all the scumbags were stealing people's generators. They'd show up in the middle of the night. They'd have a cheap ass lawnmower. They'd start the lawnmower up. They'd turn the generator off and walk away with it. People wake up, maybe they heard something like, oh, generator's still running. Everything's fine. And they wake up in the morning and discover they got no power and the generator's gone. So we run ours in a locked room, and then we have it hooked into multiple batteries. And the advantage of that is that we can store up energy. If we were to run out of propane, because it's a truly, Teotihuacan situation, the end of the world as we know it, then we have solar panels. We have multiple solar panels that we can charge those batteries back up again. Obviously, we would be, rationing it to make sure that we had the bare minimum of things in place. But get that stuff in place now. Make sure you got water. Without water, you're in deep, deep shit. I like the Sawyer products, by the way. And communication wise, that's probably the number one thing that all y'all can get onto when it comes past sustainability, like water and food. If you're talking food, I'm going to, quickly give our premier sponsor a plug here. So carnivalt.com. These guys have cracked the code on 25-year shelf life raw meat. Nobody else has done it like these guys have. So this bag in particular had 6 ounces. I'm showing it sideways on purpose. Had 6 ounces of sirloin in it. That makes 1.5 pounds of raw meat. You don't need any refrigeration because it's freeze dry. It's got a 25-year shelf life. 100% American product, not grass fed, grass finished, which is grass fed and grass finished. No mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines. Super high quality product, long shelf life. Reconstitutes in 5 to 10 minutes. Pro tip for you: put a little bit of salt in with the water that you're reconstituting it with, or a bouillon cube. Greatly expedites the reconstitution process. They've got single containers now, like single meal containers, so you can take them with you on the go, but stack that shit up. Electricity goes out, you still have a high quality protein source. Josh Bryant is a friend of mine. He's like a preeminent global leader in strength and conditioning. And we had a meeting with him not too long ago, and Josh was like, look, I ran the numbers on this, and one serving, which is considered 25 grams, there's 6 servings in here. He said you would have to take in somewhere around 75 grams of protein that's been derived from soy, like soya isolate, that sort of stuff. That's not to mention the soy products destroy your testosterone level, which is probably the biggest reason today that the average 20-year-old has the testosterone level that a 70-year-old had in the year 2000. But Carnival, if you go to their website and use the code EATMEAT, all one word, you get 10% off, free shipping over $99. We do not get affiliate money from these guys, but we do get a generous stipend to help us defer expenses. $4,700 a month in software subscriptions, $4,000 a month in ClearStar background checks. So when you join the Guardians, we run your phone number through there as a cursory check, if nothing else, before you get access to our private Signal community and channels, for example. But if you go and buy something from Carnival tonight before midnight, over $99, send us the email receipt to support@survivaldispatch.com. If you're not a Guardian, get signed up before midnight for 50% off, $37.50. It ends at midnight tonight. And I'll tack on an extra 90 days compliments of Carnival for you buying from them. So the process is sign up survivaldispatch.news, $37.50 for a year. Go buy $99+ from carnival.com. Forward your receipt to support@survivaldispatch.com. I tack another 90 days on. You pay $2.50 a month for the next 15 months to gain access to our Guardian community. It's a heck of a deal. There's nothing else like it out there, by the way, where you have a combination of counterterrorism, survival, preparedness, comms, technology, all the pieces that go together. I can't tell you how proud of our community and my team I am of putting all this stuff together. So with that being said, this is turned out to become one of my favorite parts of the night. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so it is time for the Carnival Hero of the Night. If you follow my personal podcast, which is 7 p.m. Eastern every Sunday, kevin.substack.com, I do the retard of the week, but during the week, we do the Carnival hero of the week. And this, I alluded to early, is absolutely an American hero. A National Guard soldier armed with just a pocket knife put his life on the line and charged the armed Afghani terrorist and stabbed him. Absolute American hero. May he be awarded with the highest possible military decorations. I don't know what his name is yet. I don't know that it's even been published. I looked, could not find it. I'm not going to play the whole minute and 15, but I will play part of this, and I'm going to zoom in as best as I can. So basically, right here, you've got all hell breaking loose. That guard right there, this guy in front of the cop, was the one who took down the bad guy and stabbing him. So, I mean, you want to talk about bravery? That guy runs into live fire and stabs the son of a bitch on the spot. That's a true American hero right there. I don't know if you want to add to that, Jeff.
Well, there's the old adage, don't take a knife to a gunfight. Well, he did, and he came out on top.
Well said.
Big
Absolute,
brass ones on that dude.
yeah, absolute hero.
He clicks when he walks.
Yeah. So the next one, post from James Woods. Love this guy. He reportedly has an IQ of something like 170, 180. He's like crazy, crazy smart. This story was submitted by Tim Smith, who's on our news team. The guy's a freaking machine. Him and Dale in particular, but Shannon does a great job, and so do a bunch of others. Not meaning to leave anybody out, but we have one of the channels we have, I forgot to mention earlier, is called the Crusaders. We have 12 people gathering news and posts like this, and they do a phenomenal job. And I can't thank them enough for the skin in the game that they put in. All right, anything short of this, and America is doomed. Thank God for President Trump. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policies eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. End all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens in our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign nationals in a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure this situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. Jeff, do you want to add any comments to James or President Trump there?
I hope he does it soon.
You know what? I second the motion. Let's see it happen soon. Absolutely. All right. So we're at the final stages here with the conflicted question tonight. Several businessmen were closing their doors since it was almost impossible to function under the circumstances, meaning post-apocalyptic scenario. Gordon needed supplies and was willing to pay the price to get them. If you were in his situation, what means of persuasion would you use to get what you need? Jeff, go to you first.
Well, I would look at it as, okay, he's the guy I need the supplies from. He's a businessman, so he's used to trading, but he's unsure of the market and the market situation. I would try to offer him some stability. Maybe it's in the form of, look, you help me get what I want. I will come and I will work for you as a security guard to make sure that you can do business and you don't have some yo-yo coming in trying to rip you off. Or I will help you. I will help find customers for you. If you have supplies and you need people who have the money or have the barter goods to come in and do it, you basically help him run his business. So that way, if he stays in business, you have a supplier. If he goes out of business, you can go in there and take what you want, maybe, but that's only a one-time deal.
Yeah,
you got something that lasts over time. and is beneficial to the whole community.
Yeah, so great solution on your part, and I would agree with everything you said. I would just add one thing that's particular to me. So I'm the Forrest Gump of the high-tech business world. I'm a college dropout. I'm almost at 23,000 contacts in my address book. These are people I've worked with during my career. It's the biggest piece of currency I bring to the table. I tell people, I stole this from Patrick Byrne, by the way, but I'm a whole lot taller and better looking when I stand on my Rolodex. And my entire career, I've brought people together, and I would do the exact same thing that Jeff described, but I would have a pretty awesome list of contacts to bring to the table to, help them. So with that being said, a quick reminder that Keith Graves, Christian Warrior Training, myself, the guys from Carnival, we will all be at the Vets Tactical booth on the Wednesday of SHOT Show in Vegas coming up third week of January. We want to see y'all there, and we also want to see you compete. So Vets Tactical make this thing called the cup holster, okay? And what it is these are cup holders that essentially they come with different shims, they fit different size pistols, and you put it in your drink holder in your car, and you have extremely quick access. Jeff can tell you he's seen, multiple firearms professionals timed on this thing. And at the very least, they're 3 seconds faster with that versus drawing. So this is the Titan X. It's a trait. This is plastic, YouTube. This is not a gun. Piss off and don't give me another freaking strike for a plastic gun. So we're going to have a piece of equipment set up that simulates you sitting in the driver's seat, okay? So a heavy chair with no arms, platform beside it, cup holster with a pistol, a Titan X sitting in it, like this, and the app is going to go off beep like that, shooter ready beep, and you're going to pull from the cup holster, turn 90 degrees like you're in a truck, shoot a laser target that will keep track of how many times you hit it. You get 6 shots, and if you can beat Keith Graves, you will get all kinds of coverage on the internet. We're going to really blow that up. So Keith, the Christian Warrior, 30-year law enforcement officer, SWAT team guy, SWAT team leader, and you're going to get major bragging rights that you beat Keith Graves. But on top of that, the top 3 people are going to get a bunch of, prizes. Like Carnival's the premier sponsor besides Vets Tactical. You're going to get a bunch of Carnival stuff, food and swag and stuff that go with it. Pretty sure that we've got Mags & Co., which is an ammo company, are going to sponsor it. We've got about 4 or 5 really kick-ass vendors who are lined up. So 12 noon Wednesday at SHOT Show. Be there or be square, and it's going to be fantastic. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
One thing on the cup holster, I have one, so
okay,
I got one in my Jeep. When you're ordering one, go online, and they have different models for different kinds of guns and for different accoutrement that you have on your gun. If you have a large frame, like a Ruger P90, something like that, you pick this one. If you've got one that has a light under the barrel, they have one for that. If you have a compact carry, they've got one for that. If you have a compact carry with a laser sight or a flashlight, on a Picatinny rail, they've got one for that. So make sure you get, and they list what guns each one will fit. So make sure you get the right one for what you're carrying. Because the last thing you want to do is, get one for gun A and you have gun B, and then you got to return it and all that. But they list them all out. But even if you have a gun that, like say, has a tactical flashlight attached to it, it can handle that too.
Yeah, exactly. It's 100% made in America. So
yes.
The owner of this company is a veteran. Go ahead,
yep.
Jeff.
Well, Craig, yeah. And I know Craig, great dude, really good dude. And it's a smart thing too, because it fits your cup holder. There's also a magnet in there, so it holds your gun to one side. And even if you have a polymer gun like a Glock or something, the barrel isn't. And it will hold your gun to one side so it doesn't rattle when you're driving. Because I've got an old Ruger, and it's a magnesium frame in stainless steel, so those aren't magnetic, but the barrel is. It holds it to the side, so when you're driving down the road, it didn't just sitting there rattling. It's a really smart design.
It's brilliant. And
if you take it out of one truck and put it in the next, in the next car.
Craig owns the extrusion equipment. These
Yeah.
are all made in Boise, Idaho. It's 100% American. It's a veteran company. vetstactical.com. Check them out. You can use
Yep.
code SD10. S is in Sam, D is in David. Also, don't forget where we opened up veteranscannabiscare.org, the only facility that we are aware of that covers all expenses related to the doctor's opinion evaluation and the state license here in Florida. So you can get a cannabis license if you're a vet completely for free. Check them out. veteranscannabiscare.org. Really doing kick-ass things. And besides that, clock is ticking. We've got less than 3 hours before midnight hits on the East Coast. Between now and then, go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for an annual membership. You get 50% off, $37.50 a year. If you buy from Carnivalt, $99+, use the code EATMEAT. You'll also get free shipping. Forward that receipt to support at survivaldispatch.com. We'll give you an extra 90 days on your membership. Free. Works out to $2.50 per month for 15 months to be a guardian. I will be back Sunday evening with my funny ha podcast where we make fun of shit and we start the week with a smile before we get into all this heavy doom and gloom stuff. The rest of the crew will be back on Monday with the next episode in our long war story series, which is called Latin America on Fire. I'm going to say it's going to be a barn burner, but that's kind of a bad one. But anyways, I appreciate all y'all out there, especially our guardians, appreciate our sponsors, and look forward to seeing y'all on Sunday night. If not, I'll see you on Monday night. But between now and then, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless.
Enjoy the close.
Removed, the world seemed a bit simpler, at least through the eyes of a kid growing up in the heart of America. Back then, we had something special, a culture where freedom of expression wasn't just allowed, it was celebrated. Making fun of each other wasn't about malice, and it usually wasn't even mean. It was a rite of passage, a way to laugh about our differences, unifying us through humor. Sure, there were bullies, but they played an important role. By pushing us, they taught us to push back, to stand up for ourselves, to fight for what we believed in. A clever comeback was like a right hook with a smile.
You play ball like a girl!
It was all part of growing up and learning life lessons that molded our character. Everyone got their turn, and it was worth it. But as time went on, people got lazy. They got soft. The culture went woke, and suddenly everything was offensive. Every joke had to be justified, and the spontaneity of youth was replaced with caution. Our carefree spirit replaced by the twisted calculations of political correctness. Victimhood became a virtue, and cancel culture reigned supreme. Then a miracle happened. God stepped in, and we, the people, stood up. We elected a new president, a leader who promised to bring back the laughter, the color, the soul. This president, with a nod to the past, aims to make our culture great again, a pledge to reignite the magic of yesteryears.
Mr. Donald! Oh my God!
Not just bringing back jobs, but bringing back the joy of unapologetic humor.
This ain't Johnny Carson, motherfucker.
The freedom of expression without the fear of offense. Now we're seeing a renaissance. The music is getting louder again, the colors brighter, and the laughter, well, it's starting to sound a lot like it used to. Maybe it's not a return to the past, but a rebirth of the spirit that made those times so special. So here we are, standing at the crossroads of nostalgia and revival, looking forward to what's next with the same hopeful eyes we had when we first watched the world through the window of our childhood. And maybe, just maybe, we're learning that the best parts of our past can still light the way for our future. And maybe we're about to enter a new golden age, a golden age where the wonder years,